contradiction that we have to encounter giving our legal advice or to marshal the resources of the organization. The biggest problem today that the Indian INC is facing is on the rising legal cost. Not very long ago, there was a newspaper article which said that I believe the legal spend or the legal cost in India is 1,200 billion. And that's quite a cause of concern to all the companies, and all the problem actually comes and rests on the GC. Please monitor your bills, please ensure, go minimum outside, but you need to go outside where there is a need. So here is a challenge. So I just want to know from my panel, and maybe I would even request the audience also to give their viewpoint. How do we manage the legal spend? There is no straight-fit answer, but still, out of experience.
I think there is no choice about, one need to be very cautious about the kind of a budgets which we have on the legal costs, but this is something we need to balance the cost versus the quality of the advice which we get. Where it's required, it's a certain, I convince my management to go overboard and get a kind of an external opinion or engaging somebody, a team of people for a particular job, because that is a thing which would really ring fence the organization from any kind of a vagaries it may be subjected to at a future date. Just quote an example of this Vodafone infamous case of India, which has seen through major courts and including that of the Supreme Court. It's not that the lawyers on both sides are somebody who is less in stature. On both sides of the table, they are represented by the best of the lawyers and the best of the counsels. But still, it went in for a toss from stage to stage, incurring huge cost. Even the stakes are very high. It's just a case in point to say that where it is required, I think the cost is secondary and the quality is primary. But as a general counsel, there is a responsibility on the individual to see that the cost is balanced, well within the budgets, and to that extent, usually the rule of the thumb which we adopt is about 80-20, 80 in-house and 20 out-house. But occasionally, depending on the issues or the kind of M&A programs which we envisage, probably it may vary here and there. But generally, that's a rule of the thumb equation we have.
Badri, you pointed about the fact that the GC needs to bring value. And I think here is another area where he needs to bring value. How to reduce cost or at least manage the cost. And there is where you need to strike a balance. How much external, how much internal. Yes, it's going to be based on the fact what are the stakes, what is the issue, M&A, surely, a lot of external advice, and so on. So I think there'll be guiding factors, but the rule of the thumb will be try to do as much as in-house, which is possible. And then there will be strategically decide what we need to outsource, how much of legal advice you need. Do you need to ship out the entire contract, or just you need a strategic advice on the places where you want to be doubly sure. So I think it's a mix, and here is where the gentleman needs to, or the lady needs to bring the value. And it's not just about the general counsel, I think it's about the in-house counsels, it's about the entire team within the legal department. We've been adding teams. I mean, the entire corporations today have battery of lawyers from from say about 10, 15, 20 years ago, where the legal department would be a 2-member or a 5-member team. We have hundreds of lawyers who are now part of the, corporations. So I think in that scenario, the teams bring value. It's strategic and it's need-based. So I think there's where we take the call and add value and give value to the organization.
To add to what my panelists have said here, whenever I meet external counsel, be it in their offices or be it in our offices, most of the time I ensure to see that I sit around a round table than a square or a rectangular table, because I would not like to recognize a situation of you versus me. The ultimate objective is, if the organization needs value add to a particular problem or an acquisition or a solution to a given scenario, be it litigation or non-litigation, the emphasis is to lead and deliver. So in that leading and delivering, I need to see who is my companion, and the best way out is to seek out where there is a need. And when I look at the balance, typically, yes, organizations would like to have people who have succession mapped out for the positions, various positions that we hire. including the general counsel's position. So over a period of time, the expectation of the organization on a long-term basis is to ensure that expense made out on account of legal services is actually seen as delivering a great value to the business. And when we ensure that, there are no questions asked regarding budget versus actuals. While they are being reviewed, while they are seen with a scrutinizable eye of corporate audit and assurance and in general by the business heads, they will never say compromise here, do deliver it in-house. And having experienced that kind of an environment, I would like to continue with the philosophy that yes, we seek out because we need to ultimately deliver in teams the value that the organization expects from us. Thank you.
As an in-house counsel, I have a fairly mid-sized team. What we do is, at the beginning, before the end of the financial year, we've just completed the exercise. We do a zero budget on cases. So if you have X number of cases, you must know how many hearings you're going to have, how much is going to be the estimated cost. You work on that. You make a contingency estimation of how many cases and how many appeals do you expect, basis your previous years, what the trending is, and you do in that manner. While you could do that exercise and you can control your budget, you can control your costs, and we have been consistently reducing our costs. My mandate to my team right now is to reduce costs by 20%, see how many of those frivolous cases of 138, that's a check bouncing case or recovery case, can we close rather than getting into a litigation situation and continuing in that manner. While one hand you can control costs where you control, that's the reason we say we control controllable costs. But if today there is a reputational issue, there is a threat to the operation of the company, organization, or a threat to a shutting down of a plant of the company, then of course it takes a different tangent. It goes into a different loop altogether. Then we don't look at the budget at that point in time. Survival of the fittest is what we look at. We don't compromise to look at any of the best of counsel. And the organization has been working the same platform. So to us, what we do is wherever one of the key result area of all the lawyers within the organization is control controllable cost. Uncontrollable, you can't control, just control the controllable cost.
Yeah, James.
If you want comments, I can offer one that
Please, by all means.
might be interesting. This sort of discussion goes on everywhere. And in the U.S., we probably use different terms, but the bottom line is the same. The business people can do budgets, general counsels can do budgets, and the story. And what they differentiate work a little differently than 80-20, but you're talking about commodity work which can be done in-house or by very low-cost lawyers. And there's also bet the company type of situations which are the most challenging legal situations you might likely face in your career, and that means that you've got to go outside. And since it's bet the company, all budgets are off. It doesn't matter. We can't lose. We have to do what we have to do to win. The bottom line discussion gets to the same place, there aren't too many options you have if you're confronted with a bet the company type of transaction. If you're confronted with commodity work, you've got lots of options.
We do a lot of balancing tightrope action.
I just want to clarify the point here. What we do is that generally the generic budgets when we make based on the last year's cost versus the current year budgets, we do on a assumptive mode of 80-20, but the transactions which you are referring to, or for that matter any organization will have the transactions, the transaction cost is separately budgeted as an independent line item. It doesn't come into the part of the budget. That's altogether a different one. And when the transaction cost itself is a factor for the consultants, for the legal advisors, and for the other experts in the field domain, because there is going to be a financial, technical, as well as a legal due diligence, operational due diligence. So those are the costs which we separately factor it out, but that comes as a separate item, not a part of the regular budget.
Sorry to interrupt in between, but I have one thing to say which I am thinking for a quite long time. I have seen the few general counsel is you can't be anything more than the general counsel. But the growth and the diversity in the working is that is required. So I have seen the quite few people being a CEO of a company from general counsel. So we have to see from our INBA perspective whether what we can do together to find a new avenues for the general counsel growth. And what I request you people, you mentor the juniors. Thus, we are the very young lawyer-driven organization. We would request you to mentor few young lawyers, and so that in return they follow you and they can grow in their life. So this is the you have to find out the way for your own growth and the diversity in the work and new learning opportunities has to be continuity. That's my suggestion. I hope you can continue.
Yes. Sorry, James.
I'm just wondering if any of the general counsels go through a build or buy analysis. For commodity work, it's probably just as easy to build your own capacity. For work that's not the company work, but somewhere above build commodity work, then you have a choice. You can build it or you can buy it outside. Does anybody do that?
I am reminded of an example of recently a friend of ours who, after having a successful tenure as a general counsel, has gone on to really build I would say, a carve a niche for himself in terms of a legal law firm that he has created, and he's doing some exceptional work. And possibly it's a matter of time before, the general counsels also feel, some of the general counsels in the country today feel that they have reached a level and where they can contribute back to society by maybe branching out on their own without having these inhibitions which plague them when they are in the management or in the company. In case I have had questions, could we wrap up the session? And before I wrap up, in case I can have the benefit of all of you, I took down certain notes on a recent seminar way back in March. Sorry, not a recent one, way back in March, which was addressed by Zia Modi. And the concept of that seminar was, she gave a synopsis on the keynote address of business and law. So I'd like to articulate that, and it resonates most of the points that we all have shared here. So this is just a synopsis. She spoke about business and law. As business lawyer has to be a trusted advisor. The tone of getting a balance of interest to avoid litigation. Lawyer will be effective only if they have domain expertise. Updation of laws and events on a daily basis. I would even go on to say the way the laws are evolving, maybe it won't be very far when it will be on an hourly basis. To identify risk and calibrate those risks. Reputational risks has become a key business repository. Risk appetite. Guard against reputational risks. Stay close to the subject. Understand the subtext of a regulatory person. Public participation, a must with government agencies to have a level playing field. Training, the one which Kavi just now mentioned. Mentors and protectors of the deal. She went on to add that what is the duty of a business lawyer, which is foresee and preempt, strategic thinker, a facilitator, one who has a domain knowledge expertise, and an unstinted devotion with integrity and trust. Finally, she ended up by saying, what are the qualities that need to be in a GC? The first thing that she came out was the ability to stand up to the management. How to put across your point. Domain regulatory gut feel. Be a team player and be a joyous GC. Ability to take a deep breath before actually commenting. And finally, don't respond immediately. Digest the point before reacting. I thought this would be the best way to summarize the entire evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and my wonderful colleagues. Yeah, Atit, please.
So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the General Counsel Fraternity. I represent a very young law firm called Athena Legal. We are just about 3 years old, and a couple of GCs have actually helped us and have actually mentored our firm to being what it is today. And in just 3 years, we have developed a network of more than 400 lawyers all across the country to the smallest towns possible. So I would like to thank this fraternity, and I hope that you continue holding our hand and helping us become bigger and better.
Yeah, we will continue to have our trust and our patronage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, panelists, and thank you, the audience. I request James P. Duffy, sir, to kindly present the mementos to the panelists. First, Mr. Vineet Ridge. He is the VP Head Legal HCL Technologies. Next, Mr. V. Chakradhar, Executive Vice President, Corporate Legal, Godrej Industries Limited. Mr. V. Chakradhar. Next, I request sir to present the memento to Mr. Badrinath, Vice President and Head Legal of Larsen and Turbo Limited. Next, I request sir to present the memento to Ms. Shukla Vasan, Senior Vice President, Legal Secretary at Hindustan Coca-Cola.